Hi everybody, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board on the Floor. Here is the second part of my interview with Steeve Léonard. Yeah, when I discovered, well, I didn't discover it, when I learned that there were like horror themed board games that weren't like, I guess, more of the D&D world, like I never played Dungeons and Dragons, but I know when I was about 16, someone was like, "Oh, there's this Lovecraft game, and you got to create a character and do all this stuff." And they gave me a book, and I was like, "How is this a game? I don't understand."
Yeah.
So I never really did anything with it. But then, seeing, like, learning from starting with Terraforming Mars, where I was like, "Okay, this is obviously just like a strategy game, like
Yeah.
Risk or Stratego or those games." When I was a kid, we played a few of those games. But then looking it up and seeing like there's these story narrative games based like in a Lovecraftian world, I'm like, I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
And then when you see some of the price tags of these things, and it's just like, I'm not spending $100 on a game that I don't know if I'm gonna like it, or I'm gonna have to play it by
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And then so trying to look at cheaper games that might be in the same world, or like, I think there is a Cthulhu Flux or something like that, right?
Yeah. There's a Cthulhu Star Realms also, but these games
Yeah.
are they're more mechanical, and you don't get the story out of it. But I mean, you get to look at a Cthulhu
But
guy.
that's it. For me, I'm like, thematically, if it's like
You
a
know.
Cthulhu game, I'm just like, maybe I'll try it. And so looking at the low cost Cthulhu games, even there's a Pandemic, like what is
Yeah.
it called? Gloom. There's a Gloom Cthulhu.
Oh
All
yeah.
these smaller games that have the theme, and so I was like, oh, this is interesting. And I think that's also what kind of got me more into it. Arkham horror stuff, like like you get into the Arkham horror card game. Obviously, down the road you'll spend $1,000, but
You
I
don't
found that
have to. I mean,
you don't have to, right?
if you're just jumping in, you could just buy the core box just to see if you actually understand the mechanisms, if the
Exactly.
gameplay is fun. And here's a good thing that we didn't mention, but we can sell back the games.
Well, that's a thing that I started doing where I would buy a game, play it for a while, and if I didn't like it, I would put it up for sale and
Yeah.
almost sell it for the exact cost. So
Yeah.
like I felt like, oh, there's a good local scene, so
Oh
I'm not gonna, like spend all this money and then just pretty much throw it into the trash.
yeah.
So I feel like that's what's cool about this hobby too, is that someone somewhere, somebody locally will probably be into what you're not into. Like
Oh yeah.
everyone's interest is so different. And even I buy most of my games used now too. There's like,
Yeah.
obviously there are people who are like me, they want to try out these things, but they just don't like the games that I like. So you could get some pretty good deals. So as opposed to spending $100 buying it brand new at your
Yeah.
FLGS, um, like you could find within the community somebody who's going to be willing to kind of like sell it off for like,
Yeah.
25% off, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've gotten a lot of good stuff. I've gotten a copy of Descent for like $80, brand new, sealed. Like
Amazing.
there's it's amazing how many people have disposable income where it's like they will buy stacks of games,
Mhm.
and 3 years later they'll be like, I'm never gonna play them.
Yeah,
They kind of buy stuff. I guess there's a lot of FOMO. Sometimes it's just like
for sure.
I need to buy this. I mean, it won't get discontinued this year, dude. Relax.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
3 years maybe.
yeah.
But some guys are selling, and you've bought these lots where
Hmm.
it's like, there's a guy. I found a guy. He's selling like all of his Kickstarters. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I backed 2 games in my lifetime.
Mhm.
This guy's got, I don't know, let's say Massive Darkness and
Yeah.
all of the expansions.
Yeah.
It's like $600 worth of stuff. He has
Yeah.
not opened it.
Mhm.
It's been lying on the floor, and it's like, yeah, I guess I'm not gonna have time to play it. It's like, did you not understand that when you bought the thing?
Yeah. Well, I think that's
So
a problem with Kickstarter, and I've bought a couple of Kickstarter games off of people that are still sealed,
yeah,
and everyone seems to express the same thing, that when I bought it or when I pledged for it originally 2 years ago, I was really interested, and now 2 years later, I'm like a professional, I have a career, so like I don't have
oh
time to
yeah,
board game anymore,
yeah,
and so I can understand that. But I think there's also like uh, a resell kind of like enterprise of like people buy five, like they do the what's it called, like the retail pledge, where you could get like 5 copies of the game
yeah.
just to like sit on it, wait a year, and then sell it.
I guess you could do that, but it takes a lot of income to
Exactly, because
invest in
those games
that.
are not cheap. when you buy like the big pledges, they are expensive. That's what I find crazy is the further you get into the hobby, where it's just like you're not just going to Toys R Us and buying a copy of Mousetrap for like $30.
Yeah.
It's like you like stuff like the Marvel United, where you can go to Walmart, get it for $30, or you could kickstart it for $800.
Yeah. I mean, no, yeah, no. I'm against that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say it right now. I'm against that. There's no way that a game should cost more than $100.
Yeah.
Unless you're jam packing it with plastic. But again, you should make a version without the plastic.
Yeah.
Because I understand that people like to paint stuff and all that, and that becomes part of the fun. Like you're painting it and you're playing it. But I mean, why are you punishing me? I don't want to paint it. I just want to play the game. So give me like Gloomhaven did with some of the stuff. It's like they had cardboard standees or they had miniatures. It's like, just pick the one you want. Because, I mean, down the line, I mean, even like a video game, a video game that has thousands and thousands of man hours across many mans, okay?
Yeah.
And it's like, it'll sell for $60 or $80 or whatever. And you'll have, I don't know, like 50 hours of gameplay and all that. And then it's like, you're selling me a box of plastic and rules, and I get it, and artwork and all that. A lot of man hours, but I think probably more man hours on a video game. Well,
it's completely different, right? It's the same thing as like a movie, where the amount of man hours that goes into a Marvel film versus the amount of man hours that goes into one of our films versus the man hours that goes into the movies we made 10 years ago, like.
But the admission price is the same.
That's it. Well, I was telling you, I owned a video store a couple of years ago, and I knew local filmmakers. And when they would come in, because at that time, DVDs, you could burn them in your house. You could make a movie, burn it to a DVD, and I would put it on my shelf. But I was always like, listen, you can't sell your DVD for $20 when I'm selling Evil Dead for $20.
Yeah.
If they're next to each other on the shelf, people are going to assume they're of the same quality, and they're not. But once you put it out there, people are going to compare it as well, so board games, movies, anything you create, obviously, once you're releasing it out there, it's no longer yours, and it's no longer coming with some type of explanation as to, well, the reason why this game is more expensive than this other game is because we had to manufacture it this way or whatever. Like, people don't really care after a while. They just want to know, why is that one $50 and this one's $100? They look the same. They play the same.
Yeah, but I think once you get deep enough into the hobby, you can kind of figure stuff out. Where it's like, okay, there's 5 missions and, 30 minis. I expect this thing to be $60. The other one has 35 missions and 100 minis. It's going to be more expensive, right? I find like honestly, most games have you can understand why they're expensive.
For sure.
But then it's like, do we need 6 expansions, and raise this price up to $600 and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I don't. How much money are they making off of these things? Because I mean, it takes money to produce the damn things. Like if you're making an expansion and you're selling it for $30 more, how much is it costing to make it? I mean, there's still rules and still artwork and still China printing stuff and all that. I don't know. I'd really love to see the books.
Yeah.
And then you get situations where it's like, you can buy this thing for like $300 and it's got, I don't know, like 20 missions and whatever. And then you'll buy Frosthaven for like $120 and it's got 100 missions.
Oh yeah.
And this branching thing, and it's like quality and quantity, and you're not, so someone somewhere is playing with the numbers in a crappy way.
Well, I guess if, like anything, when it comes to manufacturing, if you're only manufacturing 5,000 copies, it's more expensive. If you're manufacturing 500,000 copies, you could sell it for cheaper. So like, even like for Gloomhaven, if you look at Jaws of the Lion, that's a $40 game. The amount of gameplay in that box and the amount even of components, there's minis, that box is jam-packed full of game for $40. And there are some games where you're just like, it's unreal how much is in there. And then other games, when you open it up for $100 and you're just like, oh, it's just cardboard. So it all depends. I think I understand, like the indie game versus the bigger games, And I can see how some will cost more, even though there's not a lot going on. And I think sometimes you want to support. You want to support the
Oh yeah,
hobby. You want to
yeah,
support these developers. So for sure, you're going to kind of invest in that. But what I find interesting is when you see it's like a developer who really understands the consumer, where they're just like, this is a big game, but we know that not everybody is going to be interested in the whole thing. So
yeah.
the game's $40. But if you want the solo, that's another $20. If you want the minis, that's another $40.
That's perfect.
And that's where I'm like, this I really find interesting. Not
Yeah,
like with Gloomhaven, the original, where it's just like it's $140. You got everything or nothing. And then if you want minis on top of it, I mean, like if you really break it down into smaller chunks,
yeah,
then I find it's more accessible to people. And it's no longer about exclusivity. It's really about inclusivity, where it's just like everybody, I want everybody to be able to afford and play this game. And
yeah.
then, of course, if they love it and they want more things, or if they're different types of players, well, they could invest in all these other kind of like add-ons.
Yeah, like I feel like Simon or Cool Mini or Not should
Yeah.
sometimes go with the or not.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it feels like they're just making a butt ton of money off of games that have miniatures. I'm not saying the
Yeah.
games are bad or anything, but I will not back your game on Kickstarter when I know that it's going to come to retail for less.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll have less minis and you'll be missing one character. Who gives? Who gives
Yeah.
a crap? I mean, really, when you get down to it, once the game's set up and you're playing it, we're having the same experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I get the chainsaw. I don't care. You get the chainsaw.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you spent way too much money on this crap, right? If they told it, and they're not a small company. You know, it's like if Fantasy Flight starting doing Kickstarters. It's like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, you have the infrastructure. Shut up, right?
Yeah.
If Cool Mini or Not was like, we're releasing a new Zombicide game, underwater Zombicide, because, you know, they've all been done.
That's all that's left.
Yeah, pretty much. But we're doing like the mini version, but we're doing like a $75 version with cardboard zombies. You
Yeah.
know what? I'd be curious to see how much they would sell.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's it. It's just obviously there are different types of gamers out there, and you know, like I like painting, but I got a copy of Zombicide only because it was in that lot. I have been curious about it. I wanted to play it. But when I opened it up and I saw all the minis in there, I was just like, oh my God, like this is just like, it's just too much. It's just too much, you know?
So much work.
Yeah. And obviously it's cool but when it comes down to it, it's just like, what's the difference between if I play as the football player or if I play as the janitor? They're the same. They have the same powers. They have the same, you know, even weapon wise, I'm like that, you know, baseball club and that chainsaw have the same power of attack. So at that point, it really is just like, it's a different drawing. That's all it is, you know, like, and so I think that's where I'm like, it's really just adding all kinds of stuff on top of it and it's fluff.
Yeah, because I mean, you can add, you know, let's say we'll add 3 more characters. So, okay, some development went into that just because they have a little, like you say, artwork, maybe a special power, and then those 3 minis, you know, like, that's $19.99.
Yeah.
You know, I'm making numbers up here, but I feel like that's pretty much it. Like you'll get this little bit more that costs virtually nothing. It's not on the whole scale of what they're making. That little new thing is nothing, but that's an easy $20 for them, right? And people are just like click, 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 click because they're so. You get hooked to this stuff.
Oh, for sure, and
it feels good to buy.
You know?
It is really cool if you're like a collector. It's like anything. I collect. We both collect movies. We collect toys. We collect all kinds of things. And sometimes you're just like, ooh, that, you know, like Steelbook edition is gonna come with blah blah blah, and you're just like, I'll spend the extra $20 for that. A CD soundtrack, throw it in there. I'll spend $20 on it. You know, and I think it's the same mentality here, where you know, like we get with the new Zombicide had like Danny Trejo, like a mini of Danny Trejo. That was like I think it was $30 or something like that. And it's just like everyone's like order, click, 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 you know, like, and if younger me would be totally into that, but older me is just like, I don't need Danny Trejo to sit in a box.
Children to feed.
Yeah, exactly. My children need to go to school at some point.
Yeah.
So like, I get it, and I think I am the type of person that when I was younger would have loved all of this stuff, you know,
Yeah.
like, and I'm kind of glad that I'm getting into it while I'm a bit older because my house is not just completely covered in these things. And I'm not that
Yeah.
guy who has a stack of like sealed Kickstarter games. It's just like, I guess I got to sell them. Like I haven't had a chance to play them.
Yeah.
I buy a game and I play it, you know, like now I'm starting to have a backlog of things just because of like, I bought that lot of games. But even though I've been collecting a lot, it's the same as all the other things I collect where I'm like, if I'm going to get it, it's not just going to kind of stack up. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to read it. And I'm going to give it the attention it needs. It might take me a bit longer now because I have less free time in my life. But I am interested in playing these games. I'm not just buying them to put them behind me during my video so that everyone can think I'm cool because I own all those games. You know, like
it is a game. If you look in the dictionary, it'll probably say something about playing somewhere in there.
Exactly. Well, with all the games that you've played, what would you say, you know, like recently, if there's been a newer game that's come out in the past year or so that's like really blown you away, or the type of game that you think about a lot and want to play more than others?
Again, this past year has been pretty slow because of what happened? What was it again? Something about beer, Corona. I don't know. Yeah, that thing. I mean, recently, I mean, it's old news, but Dune Imperium, very fun, very good. I was surprised. Like, I saw the Shut Up and Sit Down review where they kind of, hey, let's take the angle where we'll say it's not that good. Oh, shut up and sit down. Yeah. It's not perfect, of course. But man, it's pretty good. I mean, worker placement and deck building and hidden information and a bit of combat. I mean, so far I've played it. I've tried it solo. It's okay solo. I wouldn't buy it just for that. But once you get like a good 3-player game, it lasts us the night. Like my friend will come here. It's I don't know 6 and he'll leave at 10. You know. But my wife and him are very much they're very thinky players. They take a lot of time. I'm more of a I'm gonna do some of this and I'm gonna do some of that. You know. But I've won that game a few times, so. But it's pretty good. I'd say the thing that kind of bugged me on it was that the deck building was the weakest aspect. Because you don't, I mean, you buy some stuff, but your deck doesn't cycle quickly enough. So you don't feel like you're building your deck so much. But we've started doing it where, because when you start, you have these basic cards that everybody has. And I think you have maybe 3 singles and then doubles. Let's say 4 cards you have 2 of, right? And we were like, okay, let's take out 1 card of each of those. So the deck is smaller when you start. That means that when you buy cards, they will cycle faster. And somebody did the math on BGG. And I think it's like, you're going to cycle, I'm making up a number here. Let's say you'll cycle 25 times instead of 8 times. Something like that, right? And it's like, whoa, that's a lot just by removing these 4 cards, right? Because math is a whole thing, apparently. So we tried that, and now the deck building just like is very satisfying on top of this whole hidden information and all that. So far, I'm having a lot of fun with that. I bought Empires of the Void 2 used off of some guy who had backed it on Kickstarter, who played it once. And I was like, I mean, because, you know, Sleeping Gods is coming out and all that, and Ryan Lockett, and I'm like, I wanted to get a 4X game. You know, you're talking about where, I don't know if we shot this, but you were talking, what the hell is 4X, right? It's exploration, expansion, exploitation, and extermination.
Right? Is that it?
Yeah, I think so. It's like, so you explore. So there's got to be something where you're flipping tiles or discovering new things. There's got to be expansion, which means you have your own little empire and you're just getting it bigger and bigger and bigger, probably controlling terrain as you go. And then exploitation, which means you'll probably set up like a mining colony or something to produce resources, because the resources you will use to probably trade for money, to take the money to buy ships, to make your empire bigger. And then extermination, because you're going to fight with people, right? Turns out, it's not a 4X game at all. But I was like, but it's still interesting. I'll kind of buy it, and I bought it, and I played it with my friend once. I played it two-handed solo. I tried a solo variant. I'll have a video on that coming out soon, and it's good. It's a resource management exploration something with a bit of story, because it is Ryan Lockett, so he likes to put in these little bits of story everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far it's pretty good, and it's almost sandboxy in a way.
Okay.
Because, I mean, you have many ways to make points. You have many technologies that you can research on your ship and stuff like that, and you'll never do all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to get into heavy conflict, you can, but you don't have to. Yeah, it's and the components are beautiful. It's a gorgeous game. But yeah, I'm having fun with that.
Nice.
But again, it's not a new game, but it's new to me because I recently bought it. But besides that, yeah, no, I mean, I have some stuff on my wish list, things that are coming.
Mm-hmm.
But we talked about this before. I don't like to buy the new games right away because I want to play the old games. I want them to become classics. I want to learn them more. Not learn them more, but I don't know, there's something comforting about going, let's play this guy. We love this guy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing Pandemic Legacy Season 0 with friends. We're 3/4 of the way done.
Mm-hmm.
We did Season 1, Season 2, and yeah, we're having a lot of fun with that. Played some Descent, like the original Descent. I'm going to sell that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, once the campaign is done, because it's like 8 missions long or something. And you can replay it and just take like a different branching path. But I don't think it's been a big hit at my house.
Okay.
I know a lot of people go crazy for it, and I enjoy a lot of things about it, but I have tweaked the difficulty so much on this thing. Because it's hard to hit that sweet spot. Because I guess it depends, because you're playing as the Overlord, and your friends are like the heroes. It depends how your playstyle is, their playstyle, what their hero setup is, if they're unlucky or lucky, and every scenario is different and all that. And it's like, yeah, I feel like every time we play, I end up trying to house rule something or change the difficulty or whatever. So you know what? I'm going to pass it on to someone who's going to go nuts for it.
Yeah.
But I am still to find that breezy yet interesting dungeon crawl that has a campaign for me and some of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I will not be buying the new Descent.
No, you don't want to get that huge brick.
Just so expensive. It's crazy.
It is. It looks like there's a lot going on in it.
No.
Well, I mean, like a lot of components in it, not like a lot of game or, but like the amount of stuff that's in that box. I'm like, oh, the minis look really nice. And I'm a sucker for the idea of like a 3D map.
I know. It's nice. And I've been told, I've watched on YouTube that apparently as far, when you go deeper into the campaign, these things have repercussions. Because again, the first scenario, it's just like, you go down steps and you open a door. Yeah. Okay? What are the steps for?
Yeah.
But, and the app is nice, but I feel like it's a game where, first of all, you need an iPad.
Mm-hmm.
Like they kind of assume that everybody has an iPad. And you need to pass this thing around every turn. If it was like Mansions of Madness, I think you can just put the iPad on the table and it's like, oh, we've entered that room, and, boop, boop, and then there's a bit of story or something. But this one, it's like, Chris is going to fight a monster. Chris, you need to take the app because you need to like physically drag your guy to the monster, tell it how many successes and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like we're going to be staring at the app a lot.
Yeah.
But it is very well made, and it does keep track of a lot of things, which is nice. Again, I'm a gamer, so I don't mind, moving cards around and keeping stats and all that. But it's weird because it feels like they've made a game that is both for newbies and for people who like really fiddly terrain and stuff.
Yeah.
Because like the app is wonderful in the sense that you're new to gaming, you don't want to do bookkeeping, here, just take this thing, it's on a device. You know what a device is, don't you? It's not cardboard. So it's like, welcome, but the price is super crazy high, and you're going to be assembling these little cardboard things every 5 minutes. It's like, make up your mind, guys. Is it a big-ass crazy game for gamers, or is it a welcoming new thing for newbies? And I feel like it's all over the place.
Yeah. Trying to be everything for everybody.
Yeah, but again, nothing for nobody. You know what I mean? Like, pick a lane, people, I feel.
There's so many games that are coming out now that kind of fit exactly in that, spot. Whether it's that, Madara, like even now, is it Frosthaven that's going to be coming out soon? Like these kind of campaign, long, big dungeon crawl adventure games, narrative, so there's a lot, and they're all kind of pricing themselves higher. They're all like 150 or more.
But dude, look at Frosthaven. For 150, shipping included, you get 100 scenarios.
Yeah.
You get characters that will be customizable beyond your wildest dreams. And Isaac keeps chucking out new content. Like every 6 months, he'll be like, here's 12 new scenarios. It's so generous. And then you look at Descent, and it's like, there's 12 scenarios, I think. Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, I get it. They've made an app. I get it. But I mean, just money for value is like, I don't know.
You would think with Descent, because it's the third one, right? I think.
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
That they've kind of figured it all out. But if you come up with if you release a new version of a game, but the old version is better.
It's a dungeon crawler, but it's completely different in the sense that there's no overlord anymore, right? Like Descent 3 is Imperial Assault, basically.
Okay.
That's the general consensus. The first Descent, some people are like, the first Descent is the only Descent, right? I'm like, okay, fine, I haven't played it, I don't know. And then Descent 2 came along, some people got crazy over it, and then Fantasy Flight was like, let's tweak the rules again a little bit, make some things simpler, and we'll call it Imperial Assault because Star Wars sells more than dragons-ish, So Descent 3 or 2.5 is Imperial Assault. And some people play with the Imperial Assault rules in Descent 2, which I have done a little bit to try to mitigate a lot of stuff, right? And this new Descent is basically, they shouldn't even call it Descent. It's just like, it's a dungeon crawl, and we have an app, that's it. But I'd like to try it, but I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah. That's the problem with those types of games at that level, and even the price difference in every store, you could find it for like $120 or $240, like everyone's selling it for a very different price. But it is selling out pretty quick, so people seem to be wanting to get their hands on it.
Look, if anything, some people are going to run through it really quick, and in a year and a half or whatever, it'll be on the forums, and you can buy it for half price.
Well, I'm sure it'll be quicker than that. I think a lot of times people just get it, sit down with it, and within a week or two are just like, no, it's not for me.
Yeah. I almost bought Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. Because I love me some Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But as I was watching the gameplay videos, I was like, you're kind of doing nothing in this game. It's not very exciting. And it's always skill test. It's like, flip. It's just flipping, constant flipping. And I'm like, I mean, I guess I could play this solo. Because I'd be like, whatever. I'm in my bubble. I'll flip the cards. I'll read the story and all that. But I was like, if we have 4 people... Are they going to be enjoying this really? I mean, it's not super exciting. You're not like, just the act of chucking dice is exciting. Yeah. It's tactile. I mean, a good roll on King of Tokyo is more exciting than doing a skill test. There's just something about it, right? So so games like that, I'm like, maybe in 5 years I'll pick up a used copy of Journeys in Middle-earth, and I'll be like, an old man playing it, in the corner.
Skill test. I can't chuck dice anymore. My hands don't.
My shoulder's knocked out.
It's interesting to see, and as you play more and you understand the types of games that just don't work for you. And right now everything works for me just because I don't have enough experience. But I'm quickly learning. I have Journeys in Middle-earth, and it was the first. I do. I found it used. Someone was moving out of town, and they're like, I got to get rid of all these games. And they were selling it for like practically nothing. I always really luck into a lot of games. And that's why my collection has grown so big. When I'm like looking on the forums and someone is just like, moving next week, got a bunch of games, come check them out. And then you can be like, I'll give you $100 for those 10. And they're like, okay. And you're just like, but Journeys in Middle-earth, I found it extremely hard, but it was my first app-based game. And it wasn't intuitive in my opinion. And so if you're going to be introducing an app into a board game, it has to be extremely intuitive and not interfere with your progress. And if it's interfering with it, people are not going to want to engage, and they're not going to want to play the game. And the same thing where if I have to hand, like, of course I'm playing by myself, but I can imagine having to hand it to other people to make decisions and make them do things. And it just seems like it's a lot. And the idea for me of like, I want to play a board game to get away from a screen, you know, like, and so I don't mind when the app is like, is going to read the story to me. Like in Tainted Grail, when you do your story choice, the app reads it. I'm like, that's great. It's got music going, real nice voice work. I'm really interested in that. But if I'm like, got to type in some things and then like make a choice on the app, and then that tells me what to do in the game, I find that it's a bit invasive.
Yeah, I understand that.
Well, I guess if we've gone through most of the questions, the only thing I would say like now at the end is like you mentioned the wish list. I'm just curious that what are some of the games that are on your wish list?
Oh wow, I'd have to open up Board Game Geek actually. I mean, there's not a lot because, again, and maybe this is just me being, you know, like an old man who has played a lot of games, but it takes a lot to get me excited now, right? So, yeah, so my wish list isn't getting that huge. Like last Christmas, I was struggling to find games that I wanted for Christmas.
Oh.
Strangely. You can still see me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. On my wish list, I mean, I've got like the Unbreakable Bonds expansion for Runebound, but it's discontinued. But I'd love to have it, you know? What else? I mean, Sleeping Gods, but it's coming. The expansion for Dune Imperium, but it's going to come out probably close to Christmas time. Then Innis,
Yeah.
also is discontinued. That's like a dudes on a map. It's super pretty and it is very fun to play. Seriously, I haven't added things on there for a long while. Dead Reckoning looks interesting. It's like a pirate themed game. It's got deck building, but with like sleeves, like a sleeve deck building game thing, and it's worker placement, and it's combat, and yeah, it looks pretty good. But I don't even think it's out yet.
Okay.
It says 2021, but I've seen like preview videos, but I don't see anybody talking about it. Oh yeah, Kemet Blood and Sand. I've ordered that. That's also a dudes on a map asymmetrical game.
But
Are
again,
Innis and Kemet, I think, are those like there's like Cyclades and those two I thought they were part of like a trilogy.
Kemet and Cyclades or Cyclades are in the same, they're not the same universe or whatever, but you could actually, that's one of the games where you can take characters from one game and bring them over to the next.
Oh, cool.
But the new one, Kemet Blood and Sand, is basically Kemet 2.0, and they've made significant changes, and I do not think you can mix and match with Cyclades anymore.
Okay.
Right. But from what I've seen, like now is the time to buy Kemet.
Okay.
It looks better. Chronicles of Drunagor, I'd like to try out. That's like it's a dungeon crawl, but you're not chucking dice so much as you are spending resource cubes to activate your abilities.
Okay.
And it does have 3D terrain, sort of like the new Descent. It does have a lot of story, but there's no app or anything. It's all like in these 2 books. So that looks interesting. It doesn't look exciting like a dice chucking thing, but it looks engaging. So that's interesting. Deep Madness, that was like a Kickstarter. It's like a dungeon crawl, kind of like a sci-fi horror game for 1 to 6 players. So it's almost like Aliens, stuff like that. But that's one of the games where I think you have to play with all the characters.
Okay.
But they have this thing where they'll activate in a specific order, and then every turn you'll sort of slide them and put the last one back at the start. So you never get the same player turn order, and the monsters do the same thing. So they'll never activate in the same order. But this thing was, again, that was a Kickstarter, and every time I look, it's like somebody's selling a bundle for like $6 million. Yeah, so for now, that's what's on my wish list. Maybe Etherfields as well. You played Etherfields, right?
Yeah, I got a copy of that. That was in the lot.
It's weird. Like, I see the thing, and I sort of... in my mind, I forgot what it was, but I know it's a story-driven game. That's all I got so far.
Yeah, the narrative is really cool. The gameplay itself isn't anything that exceptional, and the board game itself is horrible. It's really poorly laid out.
It's all in dreams, right? That's the thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like kind of a beautiful mess, right?
Yeah, and that's pretty much a good way to describe it. And I've enjoyed all the games I've played, but it isn't a light game, and it isn't the kind of casual game for you. You know, like you have to kind of devote a lot of time to really just get far enough that you're engaged, you understand exactly what's going on, and you want more. You know, that because it's a game that evolves as you play it. So the rules keep changing, and you get more that you can do, and you can revisit things and stuff like that. So it really is like a very long and not complex, but like there's a lot of moving parts. But I dug it, and yeah, there's supposed to be even more game coming. Like they released it in 2 waves, so I only got the first wave so far.
Did you back, because you're into solo games, did you back Frostpunk something? Is that it, Frostpunk?
No, I don't know. I didn't. I've only backed 2 or 3 Kickstarter games so far.
Okay.
It's from the guys who made This War of Mine.
Oh yeah, okay.
And it's a solo-only game. You basically have this burgeoning civilization in the middle of chilly place, and yeah, you have to make these tough decisions. Like, are we gonna allow slavery in our community, or you know, are we gonna try to go hunt bears up north and stuff like that? I don't know what I'm saying, but you know what I mean. And it's based off of a solo video game, and I think the Kickstarter ended, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, and it kind of blew up. Like, but I feel like you'll probably buy it used or something, or still in its shrink in about a year. But it looked, it looked pretty good actually. But again, I was like, I'm not gonna back it to play it solo. As much as I like discovering new games and new things, I'm like, I should just play This War of Mine again, because I haven't scratched the surface of all of these little bits of story everywhere. So I was like, yeah, that's enough.
Yeah. There's most of my wish list, it's still like older games that I've heard great things about and I'd like to try out, because there's so much out there. There's so much that's already out there, and there's so much that's coming. You were saying there's like there used to be like, you know, a few scattered games every year that were actually being released, and now it's like 1,000 games a year are coming out.
Yeah, I think that's what I read, 1,000. I mean, off of those, a lot of crap, but still, there's a lot of good stuff coming out.
Yeah, and developers are just like with was it Sleeping Gods, Ryan Locat? Is that his name? You know, like how many games is that he putting out a year? There's sometimes some of these developers or designers have multiple games coming out each year too. Yeah. So like they're working overtime developing stuff. And before it was like every couple of years a new game, and now it's just there's so much coming out. You know.
I saw it. Well, what's on your wish list right now?
Well, I can see behind you got Clank. I've always wanted to play that.
Oh, it's super fun.
Aeon's End. I haven't been able to get a copy of any of the Aeon's End. Like that was a thing that I think got like because of COVID and all that stuff, it just like went out of print.
I can lend you mine, and if you really like it, you can probably buy it.
Yeah, nice. But yeah, so I think the majority of things on my wish list are right now are older games. A lot of the newer games I managed to get my hands on, but the older stuff, it seems to be a lot harder to come by nowadays. But I also don't go out to a lot of game stores. You know, like I'm sure there was a sale happening this week at a shop in Anjou, and I didn't go out. You know, like I'm sure like as time moves forward, I'll be a lot more social and I'll go out of my house a lot more. But right now, I'm just like, I don't really feel like leaving.
But also, you got to play the games that you bought.
Exactly.
Or else you'll be that guy with the stack of games.
Yeah, like this is the first week or so. Like I haven't bought a game in about a week or two now. And that's like the first time I've like really slowed it down, because I'm looking at my games and it's just like there's so much going on. There's so many options, you know, like, and so I think I reached the tipping point of like now my collection feels good. My shelf is full, so when I make videos, I don't look like I only own 2 games, you know. But the game I was searching for the most, and it's a newer game, was Solomon Kane. And so that took about 2 or 3 months of emailing people and reaching out to people and seeing if I could get my hands on it, because the few copies that I found locally were in French. And most games, I don't care too much about it, but if they're story-driven games, and Solomon Kane is just like 10 storybooks. I was like, I'd prefer to just have an English copy of that. And so I ended up having to get it from BC. But there was a guy who reached out to me on Facebook. He ended up being, it's the Hungry Gamer. He was like, oh, I have a copy. I'm in LA if you want it. And I was just like, oh, shipping from the States right now is like $200. You know, it's like so expensive for something that's going to cross the border. So the fact that I found something in British Columbia and I got that was the game that I was looking for a while, because this, you know, the character and the story is just something I'm really into. And so being able to have a board game that's based in that world, I thought was like really cool.
Already you knew the world beforehand. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the thing that I find really cool too, is like stuff that I've been like Lovecraft, stuff that I've been interested in my entire life. There's a plethora of games out there, you know, like it's like I could have my pick. If you want to play a game that's like Monopoly Cthulhu, there you go. You know, like they're just everywhere. So it's cool, like if you're fans of horror and sci-fi, like there's a lot of thematic games out there, like Alien. There's so many Alien games, you know, like
legendary encounters over here.
Yep, and I just got the Fate of the Nostromo. You also had the Beautiful Day in the Core, or whatever it was called.
Yeah, or A Horrible Game in the House.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's cool. I find that cool. Like you know, like there's a Thing game out there that I've been looking for.
Yeah, there's two, and only one of them is good.
Yeah, which one is the one that's good?
The more recent one.
Is it the Outpost?
I think. Yeah, yeah. There's one called just The Thing.
Yeah.
It came out like 4 years ago. That one doesn't. I mean, again, I don't want to rip on it or anything, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be a hit.
Yeah.
With my group, I think there's like some severe player elimination.
Ooh.
And it's just like, really?
Yeah.
Like these days? I mean, come on. And the game can lag after that, I think. That's
sure,
my vague memory of it. But I remember the new one, I was like, this could be something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I never made the jump. I don't know. Something must have turned me off of it. But sometimes, I mean, these days it's not too bad. But back in the day, I would be very categorical about stuff because there's so many options, right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to be like, no, you know? Like, it has drafting, no. Like, the first time I played a drafting game, I hated it. Because this was a game where the whole game is drafting. I was like, what's the point? I'll keep that. Who cares? And then it's like, really? I have to keep track of 30 cards that have been passing around the table? I'm not going to do that. And then at the end, we revealed what we had. And it's like, I made 12 points. Yay. And in my mind, I was like, this is what drafting is. I hate drafting. So as soon as somebody said the word drafting in a review, I'll be like, bye-bye. You know, I don't need that. But these days, you know, I'm smarter-ish. So I know that you can have a little bit of drafting in a game, and that's fine. I enjoy it as a mechanism inside something larger. Like if you do replay Terraforming Mars, play with the drafting variant.
Okay.
It's better. It's longer, but it's better. You know. Okay. Stuff like that. Or Zombicide. Like I finally gave in, and when I bought Zombicide, my wife was like, "But you hate Zombicide, even though you've never played it."
Yeah. I hate the idea of Zombicide.
Because there was this rule in the first Zombicide where it's like, if you're in the same room as one of your friends and you shoot at a zombie, your friend gets a wound. And I was like, oh, what? Yeah, because confusion. And I was like, no, I refuse that. Why isn't it on a 1 your friend gets shot? Because you were really clumsy and you shot him in the foot or something. But I think that the basic rule was if you're with your friend and you fire your weapon, he will get wounded. And I was like, this game is stupid and they don't deserve my money. And I was like, I will never play Zombicide. Like I was, again, rock and roll last that. That was me before. And now I'm like, okay, well, they've changed the rule. And also, we can house rule stuff. It's not against the law. Like I see these people sometimes on the forums and they're like, do you think it's okay if we would do that? And and they ask the designer sometimes, and most designers will be like, the game police isn't going to bust down your door. If it feels right to you, dude, go for it, right? Like you don't want to play with these 5 cards because they're horrible? Chuck them. Who cares? It's cardboard. Just have fun. The point is you bought something, you're going to have fun with it, you know? It's like if you move into a house and you're like, can we paint the walls?
Yeah.
It's your house, man. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think sometimes it feels when you're playing a game, when you do something, you're like, oh, should I do that? I mean, but in the end, if it's what's going to help you get through the game and bring it to the table more because something irritates you, of course it makes sense to do it. Like
Yeah. As long as everybody agrees.
Yeah.
Like beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. You have a house rule you haven't told anybody. There's your board game etiquette.
Yeah. You need to get on the same page.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've only played with one other. Oh no, that's not true. I had one game of Eldritch Horror that was with 2 people. And even then I was like, playing a game, having a few drinks at a certain point, it's harder to concentrate. And
Oh yeah.
so that's the thing too, where I'm like, when I'm playing solo, I might sit there with a coffee or a tea and just be like,
Oh,
But then when you're
I'll drink. I'll have a scotch.
Playing by myself.
I will sit down with a scotch and start playing with the best intentions. And by round 3, I'm like, this guy's going to die, isn't he?
Yeah.
I made some bad choices.
That was a bad choice. Gulp. I'm going to go to bed now.
Well, thank you so much. I think when I first had the idea to approach you to ask you these questions, I obviously knew a hell of a lot less about these games.
You've learned this stuff at an exponential rate.
Exactly. But I do feel like, having videos up and information for people who are a bit intimidated to get into this type of hobby, knowing a bit of this information and understanding that it's not so hard to grasp some of these concepts or to start a conversation with somebody about a board game when they're throwing terms like Euro, Tableau at you, but it is interesting the more I move forward and the more I learn. And now that I'm playing with people and having people teach me a game in person versus teaching me a game like on a YouTube video, and then I'm sitting by myself still trying to figure it out. It really is a completely different side of the hobby. Like solo gaming is its own thing and kind of works its own way, of course, because you're by yourself. And then playing with my wife and my kids, it's just kind of a bit of an offshoot of that. But then going and playing a game at someone's house with other people, it really is a completely different experience. And so I find it's cool that as I'm still slowly moving through the hobby, I'm discovering there's so many different sides to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of different vibes.
Mm-hmm.
A party game or a Euro we're all gaming, but it's so different and depends what people you're playing with.
Yeah.
And I saw in your list, you're like, do you have any tips for new gamers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
It's like, first of all, don't be intimidated.
Yeah.
Ask questions. Go to a gamer's house, or or like look up in the forums. Like in my area, and I live like in Butt Crack Mountain Town.
Mm.
There's a guy who lives 20 minutes away who like every Wednesday organizes like pretty much an open house board game situation where you go on Facebook and you're like, I want to go, and he will let anyone in, like to a maximum of 12 people, and he'll like teach people the games, and that's the kind of people that play games.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely will you get someone who's like, ugh, you don't know what that is, get out, or I'm not explaining that, get out. No, because like it or not, I think we all have like this base personality thing where it's like we are so into this stuff and we just want people to play with. I will teach you the game. Don't worry, man. I will teach you the game. I will probably do badly at the game because I'm teaching it, and I'll let you know what I'm doing so you get a better understanding. I will probably lose or whatever, or my score will not be as high. Who cares? I'm here. I'm touching the components. I'm with someone. We're playing a game. It's a good feeling. I don't mind teaching a game to someone who has never played anything. I don't mind repeating the same rule 3 times. Ish. If you were listening, fine. If you are on your phone, I will lose my shirt. But yeah, I've never gotten annoyed by someone who's like, I don't know what deck building is. You don't. Your world's about to change. I will explain it to you. It's awesome. Nobody's going to get mad at you.
Mhm.
And also, well, then when you start becoming a gamer, well, then it's like you were talking about being too eager or whatever.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being eager. Like having the game set up before people come, that's fine. If anything, they'll be like, dude, you're ready to get down. And you're like, yeah. We're not going to spend an hour debating what we're going to play. If we've all texted each other, we're playing this game, you're going to come to my house, it's going to be set up, the potato chips are going to be in the bag, we have a limited amount of time, we're playing this game. That's fine. But then it's like I said before, like don't bring, your little game of love letter in your backpack everywhere you go, or you can, but don't get mad when people don't want to play, because no one is as addicted to this stuff as you are, except for your other gamer friends.
Yeah.
It's like, don't be that guy who brings the guitar to the party, right?
Yeah. You know what? You can bring it. You can put it down. If someone says, hey, you brought your guitar, you want to sing something? Then sing something. If
you don't walk in with it already on, serenading as you go through.
Yeah. No.
I don't know. Nope.
But we learned those lessons when we were younger, so we don't do it now with games, right? Though, the first social event I went to after the pandemic, I brought Elder Signs. I was like, it's a small game. It's just rolling dice, so we'll see. And I taught a 5-year-old how to play it.
Nice.
And he loved it. He kept coming and going, but he would come, he'd roll his dice, he'd do his thing, and then he would run away when it was my turn and do something else, and then he came back.
I guess I'll just use your ability to help me, thank you.
Exactly. And then I was like, I hope to God he doesn't have a nightmare, because some of the artwork is like a bit scary. And then I texted my buddy the next day. I was like, how was Luke? And he was like, oh, he slept fine, but he won't stop talking about the game.
Yeah.
Nice.
I planted a seed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I started planting seeds with my my wife's niece, basically. She was, man, I don't know, I think she was 6, and we got her to play King of Tokyo. And she doesn't understand English. And the cards are in English. So every time like one of those new power cards or what, came out, I had to like, okay, this means that X, Y, Z. She's like, okay. But they're like, she'll understand the icons, and she's got a good memory. And then and now she's playing Exploding Kittens, and she always wins.
Yeah.
I'm an adult. I'm a gamer.
Yeah.
She always wins. It's insane. And now she's 9 now. I got her to play Champions of Midgard and Lock Up. And I'm like, I have a 40-year-old friend who still gets confused about you can't heal in Tokyo, in King of Tokyo. Like the rule. He still gets mixed up with that. And then you have this 9-year-old kid who's like fighting monsters in Champions of Midgards and managing resources and stuff like that. Kids are sponges, man. If they like it, you can teach them anything.
Yeah, it's amazing. My daughter, Margot, she's 7. And my mother came to visit a couple weeks ago. And Margot went, got Exploding Kittens, sat down with my mother, and showed her how to play it.
Nice.
I was like just sitting watching TV, and I kind of witnessed in the background. I was like, oh, maybe I'll go. And I was like, no, just watch it happen. Like it was awesome. It was awesome to see. And then my mom won somehow. I don't know. But yeah, like it's great to kind of experience this stuff with young people, I find, because playing with your friends who you've known for a while, it's like there's a dynamic there. But showing something to a young person and having them get it, I think is really exciting. And for me, with my daughters, like I played Gloomhaven with my 9-year-old daughter, Abby.
That's amazing.
And, we created our characters, we gave them stupid names, and then like she gets to, pick the cards she wants, and I pick my cards. And a lot of times I end up dying because I'm really thinking my way through a problem. And like I'm just like, oh, I made a mistake and I die. And she's just like randomly doing things, makes it to the end, defeats the last bad guy. I'm just like, this is amazing.
Nice.
It really is a different way of thinking, like when you're young, I guess.
Yeah, and I find that kids also are very good at, because they're sponges, they will remember the rules. I've had like I say, my wife's niece comes back after a year and she hasn't played, like she loves to play Sheriff of Nottingham. And last time we played was a year ago. And she comes in, she's like, can we play Sheriff? I'm like, oh, fine. Set it up. She sets it up. She knows how much money everyone gets, how many cards everyone gets. And I'm like, do you remember all this stuff? She's like, yeah.
Like I said, Uno. You're telling me we're going to play Uno. I'm like, I don't remember how to play this game. You know, like, so yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, even for me now, I'm like when I took out Cthulhu, when you came over the other day, Death May Die, and I sat it down and I was setting it up. I'm like, oh, even though I've learned so many games over the last few months, I still retained specific rules for that game. I had to refresh it a bit, but I mean, it's cool that you could kind of like compartmentalize rules in your head, where you're just like, oh, I got 100 games in my head, like, and I know like, oh, I'm gonna play that game. Got to go. There's the rule set there.
Yeah, and some of these games are similar.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you take 3 dungeon crawls, I mean, like it or not, you're gonna walk in, you're gonna spend some action points, shoot a few dice, and all that. But then it's like, no. Poison in this game is kind of like wound in Gloomhaven.
Yeah.
But Gloomhaven also has poison. But it's not the same as in this game. And you're like, how? I don't know, man. It's just, like you say, there's these little drawers of information everywhere about all this stuff. But it's just like anything else. But then again, don't ask me where I've met my wife. I forgot.
Yeah. Don't ask me the year my kid was born. That's a thing I always have to think about. I'm like, well, I got married in this year, and I didn't have a kid until that year. So it has to be this. And then my wife's like, no.
No.
That's not true.
They always say that. Don't ask husbands' birthdays and stuff like that.
Oh my God. If anything, the invention of the phone has helped so much because I know my birthday, my mom, my dad, my sister, my wife. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first 5 years of our relationship, I always got my wife's birthday wrong.
Nice.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's like phone numbers. I used to know everybody's phone number, right? We didn't have a way to, unless you carried around a pocketbook with all that information in there.
No. I would pride myself in knowing a whole bunch of phone numbers. I would pride myself in knowing computer programming codes for Commodore 64.
Nice.
Like, you want to change the background to black? You
Yeah.
have to type in poke 54386 1. Something like that. I used to know these things by heart. Now it's like, what's my mom's phone number?
Yeah,
Ugh. And on that bombshell,
Still got those rules up there. That's all that matters.
Yeah,
We know what's important. Kids' birthdays are not important. The rule for Gloomhaven, where
I can also explain the life cycle of a xenomorph from Aliens, just like that.
Though it's never consistent as they keep making more movies. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's the thing where you're like, how you annoy your friends is when you watch movies together that are sequels to other movies, and how you complain about the fact that in the original film, the life cycle took this amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Anyway, we could have a long talk about Aliens,
Exactly.
but we won't.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much. As always, it's a pleasure to chat with you about this. And hopefully other people who are starting off too will be able to watch this video and glean some good info and not feel like so much of a noob afterwards. Now I'm noob level 2.
Noob plus.
Nice.
So hopefully we'll get together again and chuck some dice at some monsters and stuff.
That sounds like a good plan. I finally painted Cthulhu, so now we can play with him next time we do.
Because if he's just gray, we can't play with him.
You know how it goes.
God.
Awesome, man. Well, take it easy. Have a great day.
Yep. Okay, ciao.
Okay, bye-bye.